A warm welcome back to another edition of Wellness with Will. My name is William, last name Lehong. So good to have you on. We have a special episode package for you today, and our special guest is Kitso Manale, who is a mental health advocate dedicating her life and passion to health technology. Kitso, a warm welcome to Wellness with Will. So good to have you on. Let's talk about where your mental health advocacy started, what inspired it. Did you go through something yourself? Call it a mental health episode. How did you deal with it?
Awesome, thank you, Will, and thank you for having me on the show. So how my journey started was with a personal experience,
right.
Particularly in the work environment.
Okay.
You can imagine being a young Black professional,
right.
female, demands on you to deliver, to
yes.
push yourself. Sometimes I think a bit more extra than other people, and trying to make your way in the working world and from a career perspective. And I found myself reaching a point of burnout.
Okay.
I had limited support in terms of where I was at the time, the organization I was with.
Okay.
I found myself going the complete extra mile, which was to the detriment, obviously, of my own mental health.
Wow.
And that was my wake-up call, I would say.
Right.
I've always known about mental health, obviously, but to feel it, to experience it, and to also have people identify and say, look, you're no longer the bubbly, smiley, happy person that we know. That spunk, that light is not there anymore.
Yes.
And I had to take a back seat and think to myself and say, actually, my mental health has taken a severe knock.
And this was this is something that you realized.
Absolutely. I realized it well. I ended up leaving that place of employment without a role.
Right.
Because I decided to choose myself.
Sure.
And to go on a complete, I'd say, overhaul from a health and wellness perspective. I took a break.
Right.
From working completely, and I just decided to work on myself, work on my mindset, work on my health, most importantly.
Right.
Because in order for me to be a fully functional individual, I need to take care of me first.
Right.
And it was at that point that it was a big wake-up call for me in terms of a mental health perspective.
Right.
And it also happened to coincide with the year 2020, when I feel like the most of the world was literally going through mental health challenges,
yes.
or mental health lowness here and there. It was the year 2020. We obviously know the effects of COVID, the effects of having to work from home, having been in an environment where you see people every day physically. Now
right.
you are seeing them behind a screen.
Sure.
You have limited access to being outside and
right.
having to, experience that and so on. So that was when I realized it for myself, and when I felt that, I need to take a step back, work on myself,
sure.
work on the mental health, and that's also where the passion for advocacy came about, where I also felt that people don't talk about this as much, right?
Yeah.
We all are in our individual silos. You can feel that I'm no longer feeling me, but I don't know how to verbalize it.
Right.
And I don't know who to reach out to, and I don't know how to put it for someone else to understand.
Okay.
And I started where I guess most people can start, and that was with my family, where I had to voice it with them. Guys, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I'm experiencing,
right.
and I feel that I need help.
That immediate availability of a support structure, very imperative in really quickly, call it addressing the mental health challenge, right? The burnout, I want to go back to that and talk about that a bit more and unpack it even further, right? When it happened for me, I got hospitalized and the doctor had to book me off. I was literally working 24 hours, 7 days a week in the media space, right? In a space when you can take time off, you can only be on air for about 3 hours and then take the rest of the day off. But all these people were taking breaks and I was like, no, I will stand in, which looked good on the surface until I burnt out. And it manifested physically as a form of a headache that started. Next thing, I was throwing up.
Yes.
When I got to the hospital, the doctor said, no, you actually are suffering a severe episode of burnout, so I'm going to book you off for about 12 days.
Sure.
What happened in your case?
I think, and thank you for sharing that story, by the way. In my instance, well, I feel like it would have gotten there.
Right.
I was headed in that direction.
Sure.
I think I would honestly say my mother was the first person to say, listen, something is happening here.
Right.
So when I speak about people saying you no longer have your spunk, we don't see that brightness anymore,
right.
she was the first person to point it out and to say you need to do something. If it means you leave what you are doing and drop everything, if it means come home, we'll take care of you. You know, you don't need the job. You can always pick it up at a later stage.
Right.
So I was headed in that direction.
Okay.
And I think had I continued the way I was continuing, so the difference is obviously I was in a corporate setting, right?
Right.
I am a young black female individual who lives alone, doesn't have a family, doesn't have kids. So also felt like I can push the extra mile.
Right.
If I need to answer an email at midnight, I can. I don't have a crying baby that needs me to change a nappy, you know?
Yes.
So in my instance, it was that, pushing yourself extra because you need to deliver.
Right.
And I think had I continued on that trajectory, I would have possibly ended up in you know, a similar situation to yours. So I think having people in my life that were able to call it, even though I knew what was happening, but I wasn't able to call it myself.
Right.
I think in my instance, it definitely helped.
Kudos to your mom for being able to recognize the red flags when they flared up, right? Before things got severely, before things got severe for you.
Indeed.
Let's then talk about your advocacy, Kitso. I mean, are you meeting other people who have gone through or are going through similar challenges that you've already overcome? And what sort of advice are you giving them?
Yes. So I absolutely am, Will, especially in the work environment setting. Like I said, that's where my passion is to drive this because of my personal experience.
Right.
So I am meeting people who are either going through similar situations or are just, finding themselves challenged from a mental health perspective.
Okay.
And I'm very open and vocal about sharing my own experience.
Okay.
I feel like it makes, or it rather crosses that barrier for a person to say, well, here's a face, a friendly face that is able to talk about it and able to share their experience and how they overcame it. What I also drive a lot with people is to be, first of all, cognizant of it, right? In order for you to admit that there's an issue, you need to be aware of it.
Right.
So self-awareness, emotional intelligence is very, very crucial as a starting point.
Yeah.
Post that, I am very big on it being a mind, body, and soul.
Okay, so mindfulness.
Fully. If you do not reach a point where you are able to master that, and I say master because it's obviously not anything that a person can perfect, but if you are in tune with your mind, your body, and your soul, I feel like it's also one of the better ways to obviously overcome it. So for me, things like, and I love that you mentioned mindfulness, it's obviously a buzzword that we speak about a lot, but to actually practice it is one of the most difficult things to do. For you to remind yourself that I am here, I'm doing an interview with Will, who's in front of me. Here's what the topic is at hand. I am present and I'm speaking on whatever it is, and I am here and I am present. That obviously enables you to be still, to be calm, to be able to articulate what you need to do, and to obviously have mental clarity.
Right.
And I found, for me personally, that really, really helped to center me. Because anytime that things felt like they were just going all over the place, I'd have to be like, ooh, are we mindful? No, we're not. Okay, let's take a step back. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm doing it for. And it helped.
Right.
And that's why when I do speak to people that are finding that difficulty or that challenge from a mental health perspective, I drill a lot about mindfulness, about being present, about doing things with intention.
Sure.
And once you have that, your mind, your body, you can obviously, however physically you want to apply that, and then your soul. And I am a Christian, so for me, being in touch with prayer, being in touch with the word,
Right.
being in touch with my creator, and ultimately fulfilling my purpose on this earth is something that for me personally has honestly helped.
I love that. We've got a mindful life coach, Mark Joseph. You may have seen him here before on the show. He goes out and speaks to different corporates about the implementation of mindfulness as a policy within organizations. You are in the health tech space.
Yes.
How quickly has your environment within corporate South Africa adapted wellness as a policy? What have you found? What are you seeing?
So I was fortunate enough, post my previous experience of the almost burnout,
Right.
to take a break.
Sure.
And within taking that break, I was able to find a new environment, which is where I find myself at right now.
Right.
A healthy environment, an environment that drives culture and drives good corporate culture from our values at our organization in terms of putting people first, as well as post that our clients, ensuring that you as an employee are well and healthy and happy in your role
Sure.
in order to ultimately deliver what you need to. So we at our workplace focus a lot on wellness.
Okay.
We focus a lot on various wellness initiatives throughout the year.
Okay.
We have a social club within the organization that obviously focuses on various aspects. Socially, on wellness, on fitness as well. We are very big on fitness.
Lovely.
We have a running club, which I am part of. We take part in various running, walking races. It doesn't mean that you need to run a whole comrades marathon. You can come as you are, whether 5K or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And we try to ensure that we drive that with our co-workers in order for them to be healthy, happy individuals, to go out there in the world and do amazing things in their private lives, but also in the lives of our clients. So I do say I am blessed to find myself where I am, and in terms of them focusing on wellness.
I love that. And what sort of data can you share with us, Kitso? I mean, are South Africans taking to wellness? Are they understanding the importance of it?
I think we still have a way to go.
Yeah.
It's there, but it could be better. I mean, if you look at and as you read stats and so on from the World Health Organization, that about 50% of mental health illnesses start from about the age of 14. So starting with our young people.
Yeah.
So even before you get to adults,
Right.
we need to be drilling this and focusing on the younger generation.
Right.
So in schools, in the community settings, is actually where this should be spoken about from a youth or the younger generation perspective. And I feel like social media has a place to play.
Right.
We obviously know that we are living in a generation where if you didn't take a picture of it, it didn't happen. If you didn't post on Insta, it didn't happen.
Gratification.
You know? Absolutely. So if those kind of places could also be drivers in terms of speaking openly about wellness, speaking about mental health, I feel like we would be way better off than where we are right now. About 9% of teen deaths at the moment are attributed to suicide. And children as young as 12, 13 are taking their own lives.
Right.
And it, begs the question of why, what is happening? What has changed between this generation versus the previous generation? Let's look at the drive of social media. Let's look at what is out there. Let's look at what children are exposed to. So I feel like the more that those conversations take place, and the more that people are open about it, and particularly in our communities in the Black African setting, where it's still a taboo discussion, or it's it's all in your head. What is anxiety? You're anxious for what?
Yes,
It's a white thing. Those kind of comments that you can find from a community setting. I feel like we do definitely have a long way to go there. There's obviously people who do raise these concerns and obviously do drive it, but I feel like we could definitely be doing more. And obviously, shows like yours, which are doing such a great job in terms of bringing it out there, but let's just keep on that drive even more.
In fact, on that note, Kitso, before we run out of time, time.
Sure.
How important is it that you and I are having this conversation in helping people understand the importance of normalizing especially our people, and when I say our people, I mean Africans, going to therapy, having a psychiatrist, seeing a psychologist, having a registered counselor that you can speak to, and being able to speak about openly how you are feeling. And yes, anxiety is a real thing.
Indeed. That's very, very true. Well, it's so important for that to take place, because our people unfortunately still don't see it as what it is, right? It's seen as, this child is just problematic.
Right.
Or yeah, that too. And that obviously opens up a completely different conversation altogether, you know. But those kind of things where if it's normalized, and also the funny part is the minute you mention that, I'm going to go see a psychologist, what's the first thing people will ask you? What's wrong?
Yes.
Doesn't have to be anything wrong.
Right.
I just need someone to talk to. A neutral person, a person who isn't in my personal life, a person who may give me a different perspective on things. And the more we normalize that, I feel like even when there is a problem, it will be quicker to catch it.
Right.
It will be quicker for people to be able to openly speak about it. And whether, like you mentioned, it's a psychologist, it's a counselor, it's a psychiatrist, it's just a therapist, it's a relationship expert, even for some people who are, in relationships and just want to elevate themselves from that perspective. It's something that should be so normalized and not seen as there's a problem or there's an issue with you, therefore you are going to. And at the moment, I feel like that's where we are. It's only when there's an issue I need to see a psychologist, as opposed to I've been seeing them all along. And I'm happy, I'm fulfilled, I just need a separate, pair of eyes and ears to direct me in the right way. Yeah,
I like that analogy. It's like going to see a dentist, right? It's just for maintenance. You don't go to the dentist when your teeth have fallen off.
Sometimes we do.
You go to the dentist so that your teeth don't fall off,
Absolutely.
right? It's a proactive approach.
Absolutely.
And let's end it off on this note, Kitso. How do we then encourage people to really find avenues to go openly speak about their emotions, and to find other places where they can go and speak about their mental health challenges? Because we know to sit down with a therapist comes at a cost.
Correct.
And it's not a cost that is easily or readily available for every South African. 1,500 Rand a pop, and you'd need about 10 of those just to get started, right? And there are people watching us from rural areas, from all over the country. How do we encourage them?
I think the first step is for a person to identify that they need such, right?
All right.
I'm dealing with this and that, or I'm uncertain about this and that, I need something.
Sure.
And I feel like once you have that embedded, in terms of finding the various avenues, you absolutely can. We have the South African Depression and Anxiety Group.
Right.
That has free a call center.
Yes.
You pick up the phone, you phone in, you're feeling some anxiety, depressed, you don't know what's happening, you call the number, you speak to a therapist, you speak to a counselor, free of charge.
Right.
Obviously, should there be, further intervention required, that step can be done as and when it needs to, but those services are available.
Right.
And I feel like our people are not aware. People are, excuse me, saying, okay, it's expensive, I can't afford it, therefore.
Right.
That's it. As opposed to, I have an issue, I need it fixed, or it's not an issue, but I'd like to speak to a person, so therefore I'm going to find whatever avenues are out there. So I specifically mentioned SADAG as an organization because I feel like from a consistency perspective in our South African setting, they've been around for 30 years.
Right.
And they are doing amazing work. And it's literally as simple as picking up a phone and phoning them, and the number is toll-free.
Right.
In the environment, in terms of a work setting, we know that there's employee wellness programs. It doesn't even need to go via your medical aid. There's employee wellness programs, you get telephone counseling, and it's just sad that even with those offering for people who are obviously fortunate enough to be in that kind of work setting, people don't use them. You sit with an issue, you sit with, I'm uncertain about X, Y, and Z, but you don't even use that. So
it's that fear of the stigma, perhaps, perhaps, or being victimized in a sense?
I think it's fear of the unknown. It is the stigma, but with most of these, confidentiality obviously is held to the highest regard. You know, from an organization perspective, confidentiality is there, and I feel like for an individual, if you really are looking for something, fear and stigma aside,
right,
it's about you, it's about your life. You will ensure that you go for it. And I feel like the help is out there. It's a matter of people just knowing which avenues to take and obviously how to find the information. And that is also why I feel like social media has a role to play.
Right.
I mean, people are always on their phones. You're on Insta, you're on TikTok, you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook.
Yes.
If we are having more of those you know, coming up on the TL, as the cool people call it.
Right.
Having those organization names pop up, you know, that advocacy popping up, having well-known people, celebrities speaking about it, you know, during mental health wellness months, or in October on the 10th, which is Global Mental Health Awareness Day, having those sort of initiatives driven for people to be aware of how to access this help and info, I feel like would really take us a long way.
And that's a good place to start. How do people reach out to you, Kitso? Now they've seen you and they are feeling like perhaps they've gone through similar or are going or even experiencing similar challenges in real time.
Sure.
Where would they find you?
So I am available via email. If people would like to contact me there, it's kitso.manale@gmail.com. I check that regularly, and I will always be available should anyone need to reach out to me. And I mean, obviously, depending on that, I would be able to give out my mobile number details. But for purposes of this, I'd prefer to keep it to email.
Sure.
But I am available at any time to speak to a person, to share my own personal experiences, and to just, you know, take a person through my own personal journey. And we know that obviously everything is always according to you and what you've gone through. I am no expert, I'm no medical doctor, but a person can see me as a virtual friend to speak to, or someone who can just impart knowledge in terms of what they have experienced.
I love that. Thank you so much for just stopping by and imparting some knowledge and really and the insights that you've shared with us on Wellness with Will today.
Thank you, Will, and thank you so much for having me.
We appreciate you. That's Kitso, your new virtual friend here on Wellness with Will. That's us for today. We'll catch you again next time. Thanks for watching.